It's clear that Solas will be playing a pivotal part in the next game, and this has fans excited for several reasons. But who is Solas really? And is he really going to be the main antagonist of Dreadwolf? Well, a good question to start with might be, who does Solas say he is? Hi, this is MotherMantiss. Thanks for joining me. If you've played Inquisition, then you've already spent an entire game with Solas as a companion, so you've gotten to know him reasonably well. And if you played a female Elven, then you've been privy to additional information about Solas, so there's already been an established connection and a complex backstory. Solas presents himself as a self-taught rogue mage, an expert in the Fade. He turns up at exactly the right time to help the Inquisitors survive the opening events of the game and learn more about their newfound powers. His appearance, with all that knowledge of the Fade and the mark upon your hand, is extremely timely, suspiciously timely. Solas is quiet, thoughtful, and private. It soon becomes clear that Solas is a dreamer, both figuratively and literally. He spends his time exploring ancient ruins, pondering what it all might mean. But he's also capable of a type of lucid dreaming that allows him to reveal the hidden story of places, almost like he has some prior knowledge of them. The Inquisitor will gain Solas' approval by choosing the most thoughtful, rational solutions to problems, even if those solutions sometimes require a degree of ruthlessness. Dragon Age presents us with a world of absolutes. Elves and humans are in a cycle of constant conflict. The Chantry hates apostates. The apostates hate the Chantry. The Tevinter Imperium hates everyone. Solas is a rationalist who understands that reductionist worldviews lead to conflict and chaos, just like in the real world. He believes in the inherent right of all free-willed people to exist. To us, this seems completely rational, but in Thedas, this sort of thinking is actually rebellious. Solas is also deeply critical of other beliefs and ways of life, even of folks like Iron Bull, whose culture does not allow for the diversity of religion. Being correct is more important to Solas than being liked, whereas he will waver in his commitment to his cause once he gets to know the Inquisitor, particularly if they've romanced each other. Ultimately, he will sacrifice his personal happiness and eventually his life and that of his lover and his friends to his cause. That's how deeply he believes in what he is trying to do. Solas is a much more sympathetic character than, say, Corypheus in Inquisition. We already have a personal relationship with him from Inquisition, which will count for something in the mind of the player. Solas' goals are also more understandable than previous antagonists, considering he's trying to remedy some of his past mistakes and just wants to make a better world for his people. Even if our Dreadwolf character didn't personally know Solas, especially if returning characters like Varric and Dorian are around a lot. At the end of Inquisition, we learn the truth, that Solas is Fen-Harel, the Dreadwolf, he who hunts alone, the Lord of Tricksters, the Great Wolf. He's considered to be an elven deity of betrayal or rebellion, although the exact nature of his position is somewhat debatable. He is perhaps more of an absurdly powerful ancient mage. In the Trespasser DLC, we'll learn the full extent of Solas' transgressions, and we need a little bit of context here. In the ancient history of Dragon Age's setting, Thedas, there existed an elven kingdom called Elfhenan, an idyllic world where immortal elves lived in harmony with nature and gods walked among them. Solas was part of this ancient elven pantheon known as the Evanuris. When the Evanuris betrayed one of their own, Mythal, Solas took revenge by banishing them to the Fade, but doing so robbed Elfhenan of its magic, causing irrevocable damage to the world and stripping the elves of their immortality. This act also created the Veil, the barrier between the physical and metaphysical worlds. The weakened elves were eventually enslaved by the burgeoning human race, the weight of which Solas still carries on his shoulders. His ultimate goal is to reverse that process, reuniting the physical and metaphysical worlds and restoring the elves to their former glory. Doing so will destroy the world as it currently exists, but nothing will sway Solas from this cause. That's partly what makes this betrayal so devastating. No matter what relationship you have with Solas, he will remain committed to his goal. This singular motivation, coupled with the fact that Solas is our friend, to some players, our lover. This is why he is such an inspired choice as a villain for Dreadwolf. Solas hints at who he is numerous times. He wears a necklace shaped like a wolf's jawbone. Ben Harel is a pejorative nickname forced on him by his enemies, but Solas has embraced it and made it his own. He openly reveres wolves, calling them intelligent, practical creatures that small-minded fools think of as terrible beasts. He talks about life before the Veil and his belief that the elven pantheon weren't even gods at all. And bioware has been hinting about this twist for ages. The Dreadwolf exists in tapestries and lore going back to Origins. And now, with Dragon Age Dreadwolf incoming, hopefully we'll reach a great conclusion to Solas' story. Dreadwolf's title means nothing, or it means everything. The title says the game will be all about Solas. And while that seems like an obvious interpretation, it's also kind of intriguing. Remember, Solas was the good guy for most of Inquisition. It's only the final twist that reveals him to have been anything else. And even then, a lot of that scene is left open to interpretation. So will we discover Solas' motivations and gain sympathy for him, understanding that what he did to survive? Or will we see a character-driven descent into evil where the Solas we thought we knew is subsumed under this singular drive to tear down the Veil even as it destroys our world? I believe the title tells us that this game will not actually be about fighting Solas so much as it will just be about him. And that tells us more about what we can actually expect from Dreadwolf. A full game about Solas relies entirely on how much the player is invested in Solas after Inquisition and Trespasser. But a game that features Solas evolving partway through the game to address a bigger threat alongside the player character does not. And that's what I think is going to happen. All of the marketing so far has almost obsessively featured Solas. BioWare really wants us invested in Solas as the villain, but I think that focus has had almost the opposite effect. I find myself trying to look behind that marketing to find the rug pull that's coming once we play the game. It would be very unusual for a storyteller to openly show their hand at the outset, and I just think they've been leaning on Solas as the villain just a little too hard. People keep asking to see more environments and whatnot for Dreadwolf, and instead, BioWare keeps reminding us relentlessly that Solas is the bad guy. I just don't buy it. Narratively, I suppose it could go either way, and I do admit I like the notion of a more complex villain, one who doesn't see himself as evil, and one that our character will potentially struggle to dislike, particularly if we romanced him. But I think Solas will start as an antagonist and evolve to join the protagonist once his redemption arc proceeds far enough and a worse threat appears. It would be congruent with his character and would allow for a wider variety of themes and characters to be addressed, and it pulls the spotlight away from such a singular focus on him. Solas is, in many ways, a tragic figure when you think about it. I mean, the reality is that he's trying to repair his own devastating blunder. He's given his whole existence and immortality over to it. At heart, he's a deeply thoughtful and complex man, and a descent into an emotionless evil would be selling him really short. I mean, no one wants to see a character they've loved just do a 180 into depravity. I do think that his redemptive arc may end in his own sacrifice and death, but he does have a cost to bear, being the author of the destruction the Veil caused. And he's a man out of his own time anyway, so I could see that being a fitting end to his story, a tale of tragedy and redemption. What do you think? Are you convinced that Solas is the main and possibly only villain in Dreadwolf? Or do you think BioWare is planning to spring a big twist on us? I hope you'll let me know in the comments. And as always, enjoy your day.